Hello everybody, James here, Storytime with Dutch Mantell, episode 88. A little apology actually, because this is coming out a few hours later than normal. I did make a little announcement and said that Dutch was otherwise engaged yesterday, so we had to do it on a Friday. We normally record it on a Thursday, but this time we're recording it on a Friday as 10 a.m. for you, Dutch, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so this is going to be the quickest turnaround podcast we're ever going to do.
10 a.m. real time. Not like 5 or 6 o'clock UK time.
It's 3 o'clock over here, in fact. So, but, as we say, this is really annoying, right? Because this is the hot off the press version of the podcast rather than a day late and a dollar short like we've been for the last 3 weeks. Great news, or not great news, but terrible news generally has happened on Thursday evening after we're done recording. Yeah. And then we have to wait 6.5 days to refer to it again. Whereas this time, it's a Friday, and absolutely nothing happened on Thursday.
But by God, we'll make it sound like something happened.
Yes.
We'll make it sound like, we'll put that extra oomph on it and get the news to you.
Well, we're going to be...
But there are some things that we haven't talked about that we meant to talk about last week.
A lot.
I mean, we don't have to talk. It wasn't time restrictive. Let me say that. So we can talk about it anytime and people know what we're talking about.
I think you charge a lot, Dutch. So that is the only restriction on time. There's two restrictions on time. One, you charge me, and two, I get hungry. And that's sort of the other thing. And you get hungry as well, and we just sort of just like falter in the
I do sometimes. Sometimes I do.
We are... Oh, in fact, let's do the plugs first before we get to the news. Pro Wrestling Tees. You can buy this t-shirt and other designs at prowrestlingtees.com. Dutch has books. The World According to Dutch and Tales from a Turd Road, Dutch, as I nearly said there.
From a turd road? I cannot believe you said that was... okay, I'm going to let that one slide. But
I'm sorry,
but it was Tales from a Dirt Road. That's what it is. I always kind of like that title. You know, Dirty Dutch, Tales from a Dirt Road. So, but they're good books. If you want one, just, email me at dirtydutchmantell with 2 L's at gmail.com, and I'll get right back to you. And, all of a sudden, I started getting all kind of these emails because now the people, since they've heard Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at Gmail, I've been getting a lot of emails. And some of them are just to ask the question. Well, folks, I'll answer some of them, but I can't answer all of them. But that's why you should listen to the show and subscribe, because we're going to answer all those questions on here. But it will take us. How many questions do you think were backlogged?
I have a Microsoft Word document with all the backlog questions that we've not asked, and it's about 140 pages. I'm not kidding. I promise you it's that long. We've got so many questions that we could just do we could just do from the backlog, like, for 3 years.
Wow.
I know.
Do you have any questions that go back to Carl Gotch's time?
No.
Go back to the 20s and the 30s?
No.
No?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, if you want to know about 1920s Carl Gotch and George Hackenschmidt and stuff like that, then I think both you and I are... I don't think either of us would be that good at answering them, would we? Or would you?
No.
There you go. Plugs as well. What else have we got? We have Franchise University with Shane Douglas out every Wednesday now on the YouTube channel and all podcast platforms where you get your podcasts, and the YouTube channel is called Shane Douglas Official. Back to Dutch, Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com to get signed merchandise, including the books, including a few signed hats, including the diplomas as well, where you get 2 signatures. Make your inquiries to Dutch at Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. And because Dutch mentioned this before, if you do have a question, do send it to questionsfordutch at gmail.com. And I said last time, goodness me, we got a lot of questions, and this time I think we had a record of amount of questions sent in, just a ridiculous amount. So that's for the Tuesday episode, Ask Dutch Anything, and this one is news.
You know what's doing very, very well right now?
Go on.
The diplomas.
Oh, yeah.
From the University of Dutch. It looks great. You hang it right on the wall. It comes ready to hang, and it has your name on it. with a PhD in the wrestling arts. And it's signed by the president, Dirty Dutch, and the provost, which is Zeb Colter, and stamped. So it's an official looking diploma. And who's to say you didn't go there or not? You know a lot about wrestling. You served your time. You've passed the test. So you have a PhD in the wrestling arts.
And it's an online course.
By decree of Dirty Dutch.
A lot of people are asking how come we weren't recording on Thursday. Well, that's something Dutch had to deal with. A lot of people were speculating that you hadn't had any sleep for a week after drinking Ric Flair's energy drink. Other people may have speculated a sudden urge to accost an air stewardess, and that might have got you into some legal trouble.
Yeah. Yes.
How were you after that?
True. I was okay. I was fine. But everybody, how did my taste test go?
It went well, I think.
Okay, good.
There was one flavor.
Well, I just told the truth. It's what I did. See, everybody respected me, said this is the worst crap I've ever tasted in my life, but it was actually decent. Let me say that it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. If you can get that Ric Flair image out of your head, you may enjoy it. So, and who knows? They could hire me to be their spokesman.
They should do. Not as bad as you think.
Woo! Yeah, I can say this. Not as bad as you think, ladies and gentlemen. Try it. So,
there were two parcels, by the way. That Dutch didn't find the other parcel until after we stopped recording. So I was quite annoyed to ask Dutch anything because I thought they'd shortchanged me 3 cans.
Yeah, how many cans did you send? 6.
But they came in 2 separate parcels.
No, they came in 1.
Oh.
And I don't know why I didn't find it. I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
I guess it was my size perception was off that day. I reached down in there and I said, well, there's no other can underneath there. And it's 12 ounces, so the weight kind of threw me off too. But anyway, just to put your mind at ease, yeah, it all got here, just like you ordered.
That is putting my mind at ease because I thought it was out by $10, and I'll go to the ends of the earth to reclaim that.
Yeah.
Just out of the principle of the thing. Right, we've got news. We've got so much news that we're just not going to get to it all. But the big news that happened last week, and I think this was another thing that just so happened to happen on a Thursday, or is at least news-wise released on a Thursday evening, Billy Jack Haynes. CBS, this report is from. Former professional wrestler William Albert Billy Jack Haynes Jr. has been taken into custody in connection with the death of his wife in Portland, authorities say. Portland police said in a statement that Haynes, 70, was in police custody at a local hospital undergoing treatment for a medical condition unrelated to the homicide or his contact with law enforcement. Haynes was identified by police as the suspect in the fatal shooting of Jeanette Beecraft, 85. Police said they responded Thursday to reports of a shooting in Portland neighborhood and requested help from special teams, including crisis negotiators. CBS affiliate KOIN-TV reported that Haynes was detained 2 hours after 2 hours of negotiations. Police found Beecraft dead inside the home. So, this is almost like a Vince McMahon thing. It's like you're shocked, but somehow not surprised.
Well, I forgot who wrote me and told me, have you read about Billy Jack? Now, Billy Jack worked basically, he's worked both coasts. He's worked the East Coast and West Coast. But in his later years, I think he kind of stayed out in Oregon. And I'm reading up on this because I met him in Florida. And then I met him again, when I was in WCW, maybe. But I remember one time, I forgot where we were, like in Roanoke or somewhere, and the event manager, he came in, and I kind of knew him pretty well. And he said, and Billy Jack just had his match. He says, "Watch this, I'm going to rib Billy Jack. Oh, it's going to be funny as hell." And I knew Billy Jack, and I knew of his hot temper, and I forgot who was with me. We both said at the same time, "Oh, don't do that, because he won't like that at all, and he'll probably beat the living crap out of you." And he said, "What do you mean? He's a nice guy." I said, "Yeah, do you piss him off?" because Billy Jack, he was another one who was a little bit off, had a great body, had a great look to him, but mentally, he wasn't there. I mean, in real life, he wasn't there. So, and in reading about this woman, Beecraft, is that her name, Beecraft?
It's a surname, Jeanette Beecraft, yeah.
Okay, and I heard they never got married.
They
Or
did
she
get
would
married.
have his name, right? They did get married.
Yeah, I think her actual name was Jeanette Beecraft Haynes. Yeah.
Okay, but they didn't list that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. Why wouldn't they call her Haynes if they're married? But anyway, she was a lot older than he was.
15 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I think she said she was 85 or 86. He was 70. And I'm thinking, and then I read on it more that she was the wife of a former wrestler. Mm-hmm. Yes or no?
Yes. I can give you a bit more information. So the story gets weird, as you say. He only married this woman like a year or two ago. So Jeanette Beecraft Haynes, CBS doesn't list the Haynes bit, but I've seen a double-barreled name. Billy Jack's good friend, Todd Beecraft, was a powerlifter and wrestler in Portland under the name of Todd Rule. He died in November 2021 at the age of 59, one day before his 60th birthday, I believe. After Todd died, Billy Jack married Todd's elderly mother. So if we say this is 2 years ago, then Billy Jack would have been 68 and she would have been 83. And that'd be like, let's say if you decided to get remarried now, Dutch, that'd be like you marrying a 90-year-old woman. There's just something a bit weird about that sort of age difference at that time.
That is weird, really. But now, you know me. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, were they having a lot of arguments, or why did he shoot this woman? But she had dementia, correct?
So
they mentioned dementia.
Yeah. So apparently, when he was taken into custody, Billy Jack told police that it was a mercy killing because his wife was dealing with dementia, and apparently a neighbor was backed the dementia part up.
Well, I didn't hear that, but I was thinking that could have been a mercy killing because she had dementia, and dementia really gets bad. It really does, and they don't know where they are. They're frantic, and I'm not calling it that. I'm just saying that somewhere along the line it could be called that. I don't even think he'll serve time for it, but I don't even think I don't think they'll convict him of first-degree murder. I don't. Because he does have a defense, whether that's either true or not. He'd killed a woman, which wasn't right. It's not his place to do that. And by her having dementia, I would say there's two people in that house that have dementia. He has it too. He has to have it. Because now, and I think you told me right before we went on air, that this is the second murder case that he's involved in. He was tried for murder before, right?
Supposedly, he was convicted of manslaughter and did time. Apparently, it was a hand-to-hand combat fight in a bar, maybe the wrong guy just... There's very little information out there about that, quite frankly, so hopefully someone out there could sort of fill us in more. But apparently he got into a fight with a guy at a bar. He must have either hit him too hard or whatever, but the guy died.
Mm-hmm. Well, Billy Jack was definitely... if you just met him and talked to him, he was like a gentle guy, well-spoken. You wouldn't expect him all of a sudden just to be so... I've heard he's gone violent before and really, really hurt people. And you couldn't tell when it was coming on. So, but anyway, I hope the best for him. I feel sorry for the lady. Okay, did they get married?
Yeah, I believe so. Before we get off the wife portion, we're going to talk more about Billy Jack as well. Apparently, some people in the wrestling business heard about this marriage and was somewhat suspicious because, I mean, if she had dementia this bad at 85, and let's say they got married 2 years ago at 83, she would have surely been showing signs at that point. Because, at that age, dementia generally doesn't just come on so strong that, you know, you go from completely normal to losing all your faculties whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like early onset where that actually does happen. But apparently some people within the business were a bit suspicious when Billy married his best friend's mother, elderly mother, right after.
See, when you said that earlier, I thought it was his best friend's wife.
No, his best friend's mother.
But it's the mother. Mm. Wow. And she's 16 years older than Billy.
About that 15, yeah.
And I guess his friend was like the same age, maybe, I'm thinking.
No, his friend was died at 59 in 2021, so he probably would have been about 62 or 63 this year, so his friend would have been about 7-8 years younger.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know that, but it is a kind of a, if you try to dissect it and take it apart like we do, you're saying, this happened here, this happened over there, and then this moved in, and, you know, we could crack this case just like that if they just call us.
He could have, but he could have. There's motive. I don't know. There's suspect motive essentially. That why would you marry a woman so much older, potentially with dementia? Could it have been a marriage of getting money? I don't know. We're just speculating here, of course.
I don't know either. It's the first I've heard of it. I didn't even know he was living, but I don't know who that woman is. I don't even know her son, Todd Rule. I've read his name, but I've never met him, or even, I don't think he's even been to the East Coast. So what do you think happened over this? He called it a mercy killing, which is not somebody. This is the first time I've ever heard a guy or anybody killing someone and calling it a mercy killing.
Oh, no. No, I've heard that many times, many stories in the news.
Well, you're in England. You're around a bunch of wackos. So.
Yeah, well, that happens here every day.
Oh, okay.
But no, there's a lot of high-profile cases I've heard that about.
I never read that before, a mercy killing. I mean, the guy who did it, calling it a mercy killing, I never heard that. But you have. But you've heard that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. It's not, I don't want to say it's not uncommon. It's not common, obviously, but I've seen quite a lot of news stories over the years where that has come up as the explanation.
Okay.
We're gonna go to Billy Jack Haynes. So you said you first met him in Florida. You then met him in WCW. I think he was doing Black Blood, an executioner character, which was roundly not appreciated at the time. I'm going to come up with some facts that I read about him, and then we're going to get to some of the weirder things he said in his later life. Apparently, he had the softest handshake in the business.
Well, I didn't notice that. I notice when I shake a guy's hand, he just don't haul off and just knock the crap out of me. I noticed that it's the handshake, and some guys can do it like, you know, it's like a little joke backstage who can do it the lightest. But see, I think that handshake has gone the way of the dinosaur. You know, most guys they do the fist bump now, or this, whatever, the elbow bump, or it's just COVID. And I never remembered that much anyway, but that was wrestling protocol when you went into a different environment with other talent in there. You know, that's what you do first. You shake their hand and it's like saying, hey, I'm one of you guys, so let's have a great match or something like that. But I guess he did have the weakest handshake of all, and that was a badge of honor, more or less.
I'm going to give you a couple of random stories about Billy Jack. So apparently he once knocked out Iron Mike Sharp. This was when he was in the WWF. And he was fired from the WWF, according to Greg Valentine, because he passed out on a plane due to taking too much GHB. And the flight attendants got worried, and the flight ended up getting diverted. So apparently that was, according to Greg, the real reason why he was fired. He went to Dallas at some point in the 80s from Portland, I think, and Chris Adams was so scared. Keep in mind, Chris Adams is a tough guy, and a judo practitioner. He fled the territory just to get away with them, because there was some issue between him and Jeannie Clark, who was like his girlfriend, and then she married Billy Jack, which is confusing. Wait
a minute, she married Billy Jack later?
They were married for a brief period, yeah. So Jeannie Clark was married to Chris Adams at one point, and then Billy Jack at one point, and then Steve Austin at one point, yeah.
Damn. I didn't know that. I didn't know she was married to Billy Jack.
Yeah.
And Steve Austin, I kind of remember that. That didn't last long.
Lady Blossom, I think she was called, as a character.
Hell, I learned more in this show than the people do. all this is news to me.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I read. My stupid eyesight.
Okay, tell me this. Why was the guy scared? Chris Adams.
Because Billy's unpredictable, and he didn't know if Billy was going to
kill him or not.
Yes, basically, kill him or not.
That was his rep.
Here's something that's bizarre. Is apparently Billy Jack Haynes. We'll get to Billy Jack and Vince McMahon again after this, but he was angry with Vince McMahon because he paid him too well. The theory going that Vince paid us well because he wanted to own us, which is weird.
That is weird. I never heard that before.
Have you ever complained to a promoter and said, you pay me too well?
No, I didn't. I didn't say, hey, did you make a mistake? And then, no. I never did that.
I'm just having a little else. He hated the WWF because he says the WWF also gave him a tryout. This is years after he was fired in '88 for the supposed GHB incident. Gave him a tryout in Texas. So he had to drive all the way from Portland to Texas, and then when he got to Texas, they told him that actually there was no tryout for him, and supposedly it was one giant rib on him to make him drive like 2,000 miles.
No,
WWF denies this.
No, I think you made it up, or somebody.
Oh, he probably made it up. I don't know.
Well, he probably did, but if he made it up, he would have beat the crap out of somebody. 2,000 miles driving. Why did he fly? It would have been just as cheap flying almost as paying all that gas and save all that time on your car. And I don't know.
I believe Billy Jack was unburdened by genius.
Well, I'm glad Billy Jack's in jail because he would track you down for that.
I know, but well, let's get through some more of Billy Jack's.
He would fly all the way to the UK just to beat the living crap out of you.
I don't know. He probably wouldn't be allowed in the country with his record.
I'd hope that he would tell me so I could bring a camera right when he landed.
So I'll film it.
We'd trick you. I say, hey, meet me at the airport, James. Oh, yeah, I'll meet you. And all of a sudden, Billy Jack Haynes comes out with me. I said, there he is. And then he'd get you. That'd be a good rib.
Yeah, I'd film it. I can run quicker now.
Hey, think all the hits we'd get on that. We'd get a lot.
The hits on me. Wrestling-wise, Billy Jack Haynes. Here's some of his wackier, conspiracy theories. Billy Jack has claimed that just about every single death in wrestling is Vince McMahon's fault, or he had something to do with it in at least the last 20, 30 years. Vince McMahon is, he's getting closer to it these days, but Vince McMahon is literally the devil.
And he's saying that Vince McMahon had a hand in all these.
Yes, and here's the next one. Vince had an affair with Nancy Benoit, gave birth to Daniel, and then when Chris Benoit found out, it sent him crazy, and that's why he killed himself and his family.
That's a new one.
That's a new one on everybody when he said that one.
Mm-hmm.
He invented WrestleMania. Now, keep in mind that Billy Jack Haynes didn't arrive in the WWF until the year after the first WrestleMania. And also that he was going to be the number 2 guy behind Hulk Hogan, which in fairness is probably something that Vince may have actually promised him.
Well, Vince has been known to overpromise and underdeliver. So, but I guarantee if he was the number 2 guy, he wouldn't have lasted long because he'd have been in a big argument with either Vince or Hulk before the month was up. And I would like to have seen how that would have gone.
The next death, that Steve Austin was responsible for Roddy Piper's death and not Vince McMahon for once, after they had a podcasting conflict. So Piper had Will Sasso on. He was like a sketch actor, and I think he's been in some films. And he's a big wrestling fan. And apparently I actually listened to it at the time, Will Sasso did Austin impressions and made Deborah Williams jokes, or whatever her surname is these days, on Piper's podcast, and then Steve Austin got wind of it and then got Piper thrown off Podcast One. But somehow that has gone from getting Piper thrown off Podcast One to Piper dying.
That's a new one too. But at least he caught up to the times. He got up to the podcast era. That's the first death I've ever heard attributed to a podcast.
Well,
so it's first time for everything.
Well, that was sort of like quite modern. How about this one? A few years ago, he claimed to have recorded with a camcorder, I guess, the murder of two young lads on train tracks, the Boys on the Tracks murders in Arkansas on August 27th, 1987. And I did some research.
But I heard of that. I heard something about that. I don't know exactly what I heard. It was out there, and in Arkansas, I'm thinking, what the hell? Okay, what research did you come up with?
Oh, he was in Sacramento that day wrestling Butch Reed.
Yeah. But he was allegedly, and he told that on himself, right?
That got covered internationally, that story.
That's what I'm talking about. Maybe that's how I heard about it.
Yeah, it was covered by the Daily Mail in this country, which you can't believe anything the Daily Mail says, really, for the most part. But they ran that story.
Did you read it?
Yeah, he's full of shit.
Did you?
He wasn't there.
Well, to say that he was associated with, he should have been the poster child for mental illness, because there was something definitely wrong with Billy Jack. And it's really how he lasted. How long did he last in the wrestling business? At least 10 years.
Yeah, I think he retired in 95, but his last major run was done in 88. When he left the WWF, he really didn't do much after of note.
And what did he do when he wasn't wrestling? What did he do?
Well, he apparently
kill people,
made dossiers on various people for conspiracy theories, from the Clintons to Vince McMahon literally being Satan. So I feel that...
Wait a minute, how lucrative a job is that, to compile those dossiers?
I don't think he released them. I mean, he didn't put them for public... Maybe he should have done and made a few dollars out of it.
Well, I met him twice. I met him in Florida, and I met him in met him in Mid-Atlantic, which was WCW, the early years. But all I heard about him, even when he first started in Florida, was don't piss him off, because he had a violent temper. Now, Florida at the time didn't have that big a roster, so everybody knew it. Everybody left him alone. And I'm kind of lucky, because I took over booking Florida when Dusty left to go to Crockett's territory, Mid-Atlantic, or WCW. That's when I took over. And when I went in, Billy Jack was there. And Dusty liked Billy Jack, and he was over there because he was a big, impressive looking guy. But, and to me, one of the, if you talk to him, very well spoken. I mean, not aggressive in any way. And he was like, you could sit down and you could have breakfast with him and just talk normally. And then when I heard he was aggressive, and like when he gets upset, he's just violent, I'm saying, wait a minute, that's not the same guy. I know. But everybody I talked to had the same story. So they can't all be wrong. So I'm thinking, well, my old saying, stay in your lane. I did. And get along with everybody you can, because you don't know if you piss them off, what they might do. So, and he was big. He was about 6'4" and cut, and he would, dealt towards on traps, and he was a big guy. So, and he went as Billy Jack because of the movie, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the film, but it was like out in 71,
Well,
like a
no, I
vigilante
think it was.
character.
Yeah, I think it was just called Billy Jack,
Yeah.
and he wore that hat, and that's what he based his character on, Billy Jack Haynes. Even though he didn't use the Haynes part, he just said Billy Jack. That's when you could actually copy things that was in common use back in those days and wouldn't get sued.
Yeah, starring Tom Laughlin.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a couple more Billy Jack things, and we're going to get onto a good segue here. Is apparently back in the early days, he used to chew up his ears with pliers because he wanted to have cauliflower ears like the pros. And then he once tried to run opposite Don Owen after he had a run in Portland, and that didn't work out well for him at all. He also tried to get into boxing later in life, which didn't go well because he's racked with injuries and he don't think he really boxed much. And then he also did quite a lot of work as a local heavy for, some local gangsters and stuff like that. So basically just an all-round nut job, so they say. But there's one thing that you've got an opinion on, because we were talking about this off air as well. Billy Jack Haynes was also the original person, or at least one of the original people, but I think Billy Jack was the point man, to help recruit a load of wrestlers to sue the WWE and Vince McMahon as part of a class action lawsuit over concussions. Led by Konstantin Kairos, the lawsuit predictably ended up going nowhere. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the concussion lawsuit in the mid-2010s, you've got some personal experience with this, I believe.
No, they contacted me and wanted me to add my name to the list of guys that they already had who were all suing WWE. And when I worked with them, they were the WWF for concussion suffered in a WWF or WWE ring. And I'm thinking, well, I've had concussions, I'm sure, but it was never diagnosed as such. Back in my day, I just called it a stinger. You just got stung, and that had your brain rattled. But I'm thinking, and I saw all the names. It was a class action lawsuit. And I'm thinking, this is bullcrap already. I said, and I had the same thought that's everybody's original thought. Okay, I had a concussion back in, say, 95. Well, how could they prove that it was from a WWE ring? Did the WWE do it? Or did the guy that I was wrestling, did he do it? And they had, I don't know, they had like 150 names on there, didn't they? They had a bunch.
Yeah, they had over 60.
And how many?
I think they had around 60 or so. But
okay, they had a lot. And they were going to sue them and get this big, massive payoff to be distributed amongst the plaintiffs, I guess, the people that were suing. But I said, nah. As soon as I read it, I just threw it away. I said, I don't have nothing to do with that thing. And I read later that it was thrown out because there's nothing to sue over. You were suing air is what you were doing, and saying this air came here and gave me a concussion. I don't know. It was just, what's that guy's name? Constantinople?
No, Konstantin Kairos.
Constantinople.
I know. A very Greek sounding name, I think.
Hey, if anybody wants to use that lawyer, just cancel him out, because I don't think he's a very good one.
Well, he was censured like you wouldn't believe over this. I think he's tried to sue WWE more than once. I know that originally, before this came out,
but he was mad at them for some reason, right?
Oh, I don't know. But he was taking aim at them for a long time. But I think there was a concussion lawsuit before this with like Raven and Chris Kanyon and a third person. And that didn't go anywhere. But I'm looking at some of these names here, and there's only one who I believe exclusively wrestled for the WWE, and that's Ashley Mazzaro. She's the only person who may have had a claim. And, she was rushed out there. We talked about it last week, and she got very, very injured. But a lot of these people were sort of taking, risking the wrath of WWE by doing this. And, some will have nothing to lose, and some maybe did, like Chavo Guerrero Jr. Is in this. Paul Orndorff, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Road Warrior Animal, Ahmed Johnson.
And what was it? Oh, wow. He wasted a great talent by suing.
So here's one. Dave Hebner.
What were you? Dave Hebner?
Earl Hebner. Both of them.
But they were already out of the WWF at the time anyway.
On
WWE.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't have sued while they were in the company. I'll give you some more. Sabu, Demolition, both of them. John Nord, Johnny the Bull. And maybe he was with the FBI. Jim Brunzell, Susan Green, who I actually had to look up. She was a lady wrestler who wrestled for them in the 70s.
I know her.
Jim Powers, Beverly Brothers, Butch Reed, Jazz, Don Leo Jonathan, Shane Douglas. He must have known this wasn't going to go anywhere, but I'm just presuming he thought he was never going to go back to the WWE, so he might as well try.
Now you have something to ask him on your podcast.
I'm going to. I didn't realise he was part of this. I'm going to give you a few more. Marty Jannetty, the Warlord, the Barbarian, Bobby Billard. Never heard of her.
Never.
I think.
That's a girl. That's a female.
Bobby with an I. I'm suspecting. So, Charles Wicks, aka Chad Wicks. Don't know that name. Rex King.
Know him.
Mantor, Black Bart. I think he wrestled very briefly on Slick, who was a manager, One Man Gang, Jimmy Jack Funk, Lou Marconi, don't know who he is, Rod Price.
See, a lot of these guys, now that you're reading the names, they were out of wrestling. They had nothing. That they never intended to even talk to WWE again or WWF again. So they had nothing to lose. So they said, "Oh yeah, I'll just put my name here, and if something comes of it, I might get a little money. I might not." That's what I think. But
who came to you and asked you to sign the paper? Do you remember who it was?
I think I got it via email. Somebody wanted to know. What year was this, you think?
I'm guessing
mid-90s?
No, mid 2010s.
Okay, then I got it email. I didn't get a letter or nothing. That costs money.
Do you remember who?
That costs like 45. I have no idea. Somebody just sent it to me. I remember getting the letter and asking me, had I ever had a concussion while working, and if I wanted to join the class action lawsuit. And I read it, and I don't want to deal with that. It's like getting an ad from Kroger. I just threw it away. I'm not going to Kroger. I'm not joining this lawsuit.
Yeah. It was Kenny Boland sending you Kroger emails.
Yeah, it could be Kenny Boland. Could have been.
Yeah.
But anyway, it didn't go anywhere, and I knew it wouldn't go anywhere. And then it was just, I bet when they presented this to the judge, he said, I don't know why there's no legal. Is that what they call without cause? Is that what that means? You
or
can get
just
sued
cause,
without,
whatever. I
or something.
It just had no basis, really, because I remember reading it and just thinking, well, how can you prove the concussion if you got a concussion? Because how many concussions go undiagnosed anyway? It was in the WWF and a WWF ring, and even if it was, are they responsible for what you did in a ring?
I'm not a lawyer, but I did play one on TV one time. But where's the documentation? There's none. Maybe one guy out of those 60 might have had a little bit of documentation. He had a concussion. So I don't know. It didn't go anywhere as I suspected. So that's why I didn't join it.
Yeah, I think the only person there who had a claim was Ashley Mazzaro, because I don't think she wrestled anywhere else. So, she might have had a point, but I don't think anyone else did. We're going to move on and to more injury illness, essentially. Virgil has suffered multiple concussions. As revealed by Tatanka on his Instagram, got a message from a friend that Virgil is not doing good and has had several strokes. There is power in prayer. Everyone come together, please, and say a prayer for Virgil. If it was you, you would want the same. Love one another. We're all imperfect human beings on this journey called life. Sort of
Who
weird.
sent that?
That's Tatanka. It's sort of a weird tribute saying, I read that as he's not that good of a guy, but pray for him anyway.
Yeah, Virgil, I never heard a lot of bad stuff about him, but I never heard any really good stuff about him. I don't think nobody knew him much, tell you the truth. DiBiase, maybe, but that's the only time I ever knew that Virgil was ever associated with anybody even close to the top of the card. So, and I do hate that he had strokes, because that's not a good thing to deal with. And I see, and they're joke pictures is what they are. He's at a convention and he's sitting by himself. Nobody's around his table. And of course, some people have to be around his table, saying hello to him, whatever. But somebody would just take a picture and nobody is around his table, which looks like nobody is even concerned with him being at this convention. So the only time I ever heard about him, I think, was when he was with DiBiase. Is the only time. So, but my prayers are to him. I'm not religious, but I guess I don't have anything else to say. But I wish him the best, and I hope he recovers, and I hope he's fine.
Virgil's health has been in decline for some time, apparently, and the former $1 Million Man bodyguard also was recently diagnosed with dementia as well, which is early to get it, so it's a terrible situation. He seems to, for quite a few years, have led a very transient lifestyle in the sense that, he'd stay with fans in hotels, or go to conventions, and as you say, the Lonely Virgil fad for a while. He'd always pop up, and even started a GoFundMe about a year or two ago for $400 for basic toiletries and clothes, and he ended up raising $4,600.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I think you should raise more than that, but just saying, hey, I'm doing a tin can drive for the Boy Scouts or something, but to raise more than $4,000. And especially with wrestling fans, they're, when a wrestler is in trouble or needs something, most people are wrestling fans that I know. If they can afford it, they'll send $10, $25, $50 sometimes. But it surprises me he only got $4,000 out of a couple of million, or that Newton knows who he is.
Well, it probably wasn't even publicised. I'd never heard of it until yesterday when I looked it up.
Well, I didn't hear about it either. I would have sent some money.
We will move
because
on.
I do have a PayPal account. I do have that. And if anybody wants to help the old Dutchman out, it's Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com.
You're going to be asking for a canned food drive now for you, aren't you?
Well, pretty much. I'll just send some money. I'll convert it into the goods. Yeah. I'll do that.
Donate to the Dirty Dutch Pizza Fund.
Stop it.
We're going to move on. More sad news, I'm sorry to say. Maurice Mazanin, cancer. E-Online, this is from the WWE star, shared February 10th that she was recently diagnosed with ovarian serous borderline tumours, which caused precancerous growth to her ovaries. Maurice, 41, said that she had 11 tumours removed from her body and will be undergoing a complete hysterectomy to remove her uterus. Quote, I had been suffering from severe abdominal distension and swelling to the point where I would look 6 months pregnant, she wrote on an Instagram post. Lots of GI issues, including SIBO, I don't know how to pronounce that, multiple rounds of antibiotics, extreme fatigue, and I just wasn't feeling like myself. Despite countless doctors being seen, no one could figure out what it was until she found one doctor that actually could find out what was going wrong with her, and yeah, a very sneaky and aggressive, quote, cancer with a survival rate of less than a year if not caught quickly. So she was very lucky. Wow. She was persistent.
Beautiful, beautiful woman too, I might add. Now I think I don't know, but I think they were. I think she'll be cured of this. Why I think that, I don't know. Let me just say, I hope she will be, because I've known a few females in my life who had something similar to that. It didn't turn out well for them, but I hope it works out for her, and I hope she's okay.
Do you have any stories of Maurice while you're working with WWE? I don't know how active she was at that time.
No, well, she was just starting, and she was she more or less stayed to her own. She was over there, and I was over here, but I never heard anything bad. Never heard anything even controversial. I always heard and saw that she was a pretty a straight up gal, and she, like I said, very pretty, nice smile, nice to everybody. And I think she lived by my motto: stay in your lane. And she didn't bother anybody, didn't get any trouble, and just traveled with her guy. That's it.
Yeah. Well, the Miz got in her lane at some point, married her.
He did.
He did very well for himself.
Yeah, he did. And then they got the TV show, what's that show called?
Miz and Mrs., the reality show. Yeah.
I tried to watch my granddaughter. Oh, she loved the show. She loved that show because it's so stupid. It is a stupid show, but it's non-controversial, and you kind of laugh at it, and it's all good times. It's not really. It's perceived. Somebody gets mad at somebody. That's just written in there, but it's not to make anybody mad, and it's a kid's show. My granddaughter loved the show, and I watched it one time. Yeah, it was okay, well produced. So good luck to him there.
We're going to move on. The Rock. Now, it's sort of a bit weird of us talking about like The Rock and Cody Rhodes and stuff like that, because we record this on a Thursday or on a Friday, as this is. And by the time this podcast comes out a few hours later, the entire story's changed. So we'll talk about this briefly, but did you watch the Las Vegas press conference with The Rock and Roman Reigns and Cody and that whole thing?
Well, I watched the clips of it. I didn't watch it while it was going on, but it was Rock completely turned heel then, didn't he? There. You know, if you really try to go back and kind of investigate where all this has been, it changes every week. And I think that those Endeavor people, them UFC people or whoever they are, that took over the company, and they're going to run WWE now. They're not wrestling fans, but they are wrestling fans. So when they heard it was going to be Cody and Roman, you know, you can tell these were people who watched wrestling 5 years ago, 8 years, whatever, when The Rock was coming along, getting his big push. But they remember The Rock from 15 years ago. And when they see Rock versus Roman Reigns, well, that's the first thing that jumps at them. Wow, that's the main event. And when they hear Cody Rhodes, they go, no. I mean, you know, if we're going to sell tickets and pay-per-views, it's got to be the Rock and Roman Reigns. That's going to just those two names are going to sell it. And I partially agree. They forgot that Cody won the Royal Rumble, and the Royal Rumble automatically guarantees the winner a shot at the world title at WrestleMania. And what they did, they went out there on Raw 2 weeks ago, and Cody just gave it away. He was going to finish his story. And to me, I thought it was I didn't really put a lot of stock in it then. But then again, I'm not a fan per se. But as a fan, I'd say, wait a minute. Why did he just give this away? Why? He was the one. I'm going to finish my story, and my dad's going to be proud of me. And oh, I'm going to do what my dad didn't. I'm going to finish the story. That's the whole angle. Is finish what you started. And when he walked off, I noticed he was walking a little bit like dejected. If you can tell that from somebody just walking back from the ring. And I think people got to thinking about that and they said, Cody got screwed. They knew something happened behind the scenes that they weren't, that they didn't know about. And they're just going to try to say, well, here's the main event. We're going to go with that. No. They turned on Rock. And I never thought I'd see that. The Rock, he got those big cheers when he go, oh, the Rock, he's back. Oh, and what the Rock did, really, when he come back was like he crowned the new owner of WWE. He was like giving them his blessing. This is a good thing. But then when they switched WrestleMania to Roman and Rock, now they're saying, oh, whoa. And I do applaud Triple H because he stayed on Cody's side. So that's one good thing they can fight this with. And I think when they realized that they had made a huge mistake or a huge blunder, now they said, and I think Triple H was saying in the back, well, I kind of try to tell you guys that the fans are not going to. I don't think they knew. See, the fans really control who's over and who's not. Now, you can try to get somebody over. You can take them out there every week, and you can have them beat this guy and this guy and this guy. Don't mean he can draw a dime. It's the story. And they had one of the best stories that I've ever seen the WWE create. This story took almost 2 years in the making. Because when he started, then he gave his reason for being there. His dad, Dusty. Hell, Dusty's over more now than he was ever been. Because now he's this figure that Cody's trying to live up to. But it was a long, drawn-out story, and everybody wants to see now the story finished. But when they took it away from Cody by having him give it to Rock, that's what the people, they didn't understand. Then they heard that all of a sudden that the Rock was on the board. He's the head of the board. They go, okay. But I do think that they will take this angle and even their blunder, and they will turn it around. And you remember Mr. McMahon?
Mm-hmm.
They won't bring McMahon in it, but it'll be along the same lines. And it's like the boss, which will be The Rock. He's trying to run the company. And he's going to go up against Triple H, who's the good guy trying to run it the right way. And I think they'll take this for the next year or two, and it will be hot. And you can look at their houses now. Their houses before, they'd go to some of these arenas, and it wouldn't even be full. Maybe half of it is full, and that's called putting them all on the hards on the camera side. So when the camera shoots across the ring, it fills in. And I didn't know this till, I don't know, several months ago. And WWE has done it for years. AEW is doing it now, or they have done it. They actually pay people to come in and sit in unsold seats.
Oh, yeah.
So it looks like it's sold. So, but the thing about Roman and getting back to what I was talking about, Roman and Triple H, they'll be the figureheads and everybody will align behind them.
Well, Rock and Triple H, not Roman and Triple H.
Rock and Triple H, that's what I meant to say. But anyway.
Let me ask you this, right? So apparently The Rock was filming a behind-the-scenes thing in WWE like a couple of weeks ago. And he said on camera then that the main event would be himself, The Rock, versus Roman Reigns. So that had actually been the plan at some point. Yet they had Cody Rhodes win the Royal Rumble. But yet they didn't know that CM Punk was going to be injured, leaving Seth Rollins open for a match. It's very weird, all this. But somehow, someone described it as almost Russo-esque. Is that there's just so much like calamity getting towards the WrestleMania event itself that we might have to wait a long time to actually see what actually happens. But by this point, they probably got their minds made up.
Well, what I think happened is Endeavor had just taken over. I think they were still really working out their chain of command, who controlled what, and it must have got messed up along the way, but it got messed up big time. I mean, I can see a match underneath or down the card getting kind of screwy, but not your main event. I mean, that's said, this is what we're going with. But now what they have done, even by this mistake, they painted out a long road for the WWF to go down and to really, tap into it. And there's a lot of roads or doors leading off this road. I tell you, they have more choices now than they had. So sometimes you can take a mistake and turn it to your benefit. And I'm glad it didn't go any farther, because I think Triple H called a meeting of the minds, and they got that straightened out right away. Endeavor, of course, they wanted The Rock. They can still have The Rock. I mean, how much money did he get? He's the head of the board, right?
Yeah, $30 million to join the board.
What board is it?
TKO.
And it's both of them together.
Yeah.
So he can forget is he still going to do movies or no?
I looked on his Wikipedia recently. There's nothing in production currently that I think he's doing. So, I mean, with that XFL, USFL combo that he's on the board of, and then 7 Bucks Productions, and now TKO, I think he's got more than enough to do.
No kidding.
But I think The Rock, now that this has happened, I think this is going to open up The Rock to actually do multiple matches, because now he doesn't have any films coming up, I don't think, in the near future. The insurance to actually book him in the first place is non-existent now, because you know, film insurance in case your star doesn't turn up for whatever reason. I mean, that's why he never wrestled after that Hercules movie, because he ended up shoving that production back a month because he tore all his abs up, I think, in that second John Cena match, the second of 2 at WrestleMania 30 or 31 or wherever. No, 29, I think. You mentioned Triple H and The Rock almost becoming figureheads within WWE in real life, yes, but also maybe it's a storyline as well, and I think that's a good thing to address. On SmackDown last Friday, he comes out with Adam Pearce and friend of the show, Nick Aldis, in fact. He reasserts his dominance and says that it will be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, and he adds, it doesn't matter if certain people in the back don't like that decision. So it almost feels like they're building up to a Rock versus Triple H match, in a sense, even though Triple H's got a pacemaker, it doesn't look like he's ever going to wrestle again, but could be a feud.
Hey, listen, it's wrestling. And if Triple H loves wrestling, or he wouldn't have got into it, because he got into it and he wasn't. I remember being on the bus with him on those European tours, and he had just dropped some English kind of gimmick that he had, and then he was the Triple H, and he was with Shawn Michaels, and I mean, he was hot. The clique was hot. So, but now if they take that, all you're taking is the blueprint from Vince McMahon, and even though they're trying to write him out of everything, they're going to redo all his stuff and Steve Austin's stuff. They'll just adjust it along the way. But basically, those were the two figureheads, and that's what you're going to see. The Rock's Army, you can have that, or it's going to be Triple H versus Rock, and then Cody would join Triple H, and then of course the Bloodline will join the Rock, and that's almost a whole card right there. So and they're not going to, Triple H, if he does get into the ring, he'll get in on a pay-per-view. And even though he's told not to, I've seen guys do it. So let's see what it brings. This is the only time that I can remember, other than the stuff I did and the stuff that Steve Austin did, that I'm really interested in what they do. Because I have never been really a wrestling fan per se, but I am now. And I sit back and just the little things they do, like he says, it don't matter what you think. Well, you don't have to go very far to know that he sent that to The Rock. And like The Rock said, where do I sit at the table? Do I sit at the head of the table or the side of the table? People knew who he was sending that to. So you can read, and that's what wrestling does. It sends these little mental messages that you don't have to be a genius to get, and you know who he's sending it to. And I'm now a big fan. I'd like to say I'm a fan of AEW, but I can't. I don't mean to kind of shift gears here, but AEW, I can't follow anything they do. I don't know why they're doing it. But WWE, it's like written for me. I'm like a 10-year-old. It's written for me, and I can follow it.
We're going to be bringing up AEW probably at the end of the podcast, in fact. But on a separate note with Triple H, a fan called Sabrina wrote. So we don't normally do the fan questions on this episode, but as I say, we got over 100 questions in a week, which is probably a record for us. Anyway, so I'm going to reference it here. Hi, guys. I've noticed that WWE has changed Triple H to now Paul Triple H Levesque on screen, and even addressing him in an interview as Paul. They seem to have dropped Hunter. I find it weird that, so what does Triple H stand for now?
I have no idea.
PL.
I don't know what that stands for.
Would you just drop the Triple H thing at this point, or is there too much cachet in that name?
You can't drop it because they went through 20 years of Triple H. Can't just drop it. I mean, you could, but that brings more attention to it. I'm going to call down there and ask them why they did it. I'm going to say, there's got to be a reason that you guys dropped Triple H. What are they calling him now?
That's what they're calling him, Paul Triple H Levesque. They actually had on the little tag at the bottom when he made his entrance on SmackDown on Friday, that's what it said, Paul Triple H Levesque. Now, his last name is spelled Laves Que. Is that it? Yeah.
And it's Levesque?
Yeah.
It doesn't even sound right.
That's French.
I mean, the way it's written, I would call it Levesque.
Yeah. I always looked at it as Levesque. But no,
that's a good name. Levesque.
Yeah.
Paul Levesque. Levesque.
We're going to move on now, and we can't go through a podcast.
Well, I don't know why they did it, so
we can't go through a podcast in 2024 now without bringing up Vince McMahon, of course. So we've got a few extra bits. We might not get to them all, and we might save a couple for next week.
I'm going to ask you a question, real quick. You want to have an answer? There's two guys they're going to have to write out about these video games.
Yep,
and that's going to be Brock Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
and Vince McMahon. How are they going to do that? And they not only out of the video games, but out of the video period. How are they going to do that?
Vince was apparently actually a character in 2K24, as was Brock, obviously. They've already replaced Brock on the cover of the game, I think, with, I don't know, John Cena. No, LA Knight is who replaced Brock on the cover, I think, of the...
Well, that's a good jump for him.
Yeah, a great jump for, as chaos comes opportunity and that kind of thing. But I think the game, I think 2K are doing their level best to remove Vince, at the very least, completely. I'm not sure if they can remove Brock. So I think in that sense, we did go hard on Brock, but I think technically he didn't actually do anything illegal, Brock, in this whole thing. I mean, he's done some rather distasteful stuff, potentially, but they may leave him in. I don't know. I mean, it's a completely different kettle of fish between Brock and Vince.
I heard they're not going to leave him in.
Oh. But it might be too late. It might be too late in production to actually remove him. So they might not have a choice. And they can't just not release the game for a year because there's too much invested.
Well, this is geared for Christmas, correct?
No, I think it's earlier.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's called the Christmas. I mean, by September.
March 8th, it's coming out.
Of this year.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's coming out.
I believe so, yeah.
No, that would be too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell, that's a month away.
Yeah, less.
3 weeks away.
Yeah. Less than a month away. So we'll see. We'll see who ends up where and who doesn't end up where. But I sent you another video, and in fact, a fan called Joe wrote in sending us this video of Overtime with Bill Maher, which is the YouTube spin-off of Real Time with Bill Maher, where he and Bob Costas briefly discussed the Vince McMahon lawsuit and accusations, and whether Vince was in Hollywood. If Vince was in Hollywood or actual sports, would he have been found out a lot sooner? So, did you watch this yesterday? It's a brief 2-minute thing. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And I want to add that Bob Costas, I could take him or leave him. I think he has that certain air about him. You just want to reach over and slap the crap out of him.
He's had a lot of work done to him, hasn't he? I was looking at him. He looks like a waxwork of himself.
See, I don't ever talk about people like you do, James. I mean, you just...
But he's just had a lot of work done. He's like got white teeth in the entire world, and he's had some injections here and there.
You had a stroke.
No, he didn't, did he?
No, I just made that up. Just to make...
just to make you feel bad. You had me there. You absolutely had me there. I was going to say, what, did he have a stroke in the...
Okay, but you're saying... now, what is your question?
Just like how big a story this is now. I mean, it's getting brought up on Bill Maher. It was on BBC. It's on everything.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere, which shows you the power. And they're coming off a downtime, a really downtime for WWE, which was the last 2 years.
The last 2 years have been pretty good. I mean, the 2 years during COVID in 2019, 2018 were terrible.
Well, that's what I meant. 2 years before that. But it's all over the world. And Harvey Weinstein, they see his movies all over the world, but nobody knows him outside of Hollywood, really. They don't even, if you put his picture up, and nobody know who that was. But you put Vince McMahon's picture up, everybody knows who he is. Brock Lesnar, everybody knows who he is. Roman, I mean, WWE guys are worldwide, and they know you all over the place. So
there's except one place that's not been brought up, and that actually leads me to the main talking point here.
North Korea.
No, The Undertaker. Oh. The Undertaker did, I think it's like first proper podcast. It's on YouTube or wherever it is. And it was clearly done very recently. And it talks about, Cody and The Rock and everything like that. It's talking about all the latest news and everything, except that I'm pretty sure, because I didn't watch the entire thing, but I've seen no news stories about it, doesn't mention Vince McMahon at all. Now, I think you've said before, The Undertaker and Vince have always had a really close relationship, almost father and son.
Mm-hmm. They did.
How's the Undertaker ever going to address this?
I don't think he does. He doesn't have to address it if he doesn't want to. He's not attached to the hip to Vince McMahon on TV. It's what the fans are going to judge that on. But he is attached to Vince behind the scenes. Because I remember I was in WCW with Mark, and I remember getting Mark a job in WCW on the phone one day with Jim Cornette, and they just had I think Dan Spivey or Sid go down with an injury.
Sid.
I think Sid.
Yeah.
Was it Sid?
I think so.
Yeah, Sid. And they were called the Skyscrapers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for a tall guy who could actually work a little bit. And I said, Jimmy, I got the guy right here. I said, he's not right here, but he's, in the next apartment over. I was in an apartment in Nashville then. And he says, can he call me? I says, yeah. When I see him, which will be in the next 15 minutes, I'll tell him to call you. So, and then Mark walked in right after I hung the phone up, maybe in 5 minutes. I said, okay, come here. I got something for you to do. I want you to call Jimmy Cornette in Atlanta because I think we got you booked there. Not we, but I think that they're looking for a guy there. I forgot what I said. He picked up the phone, and in 30 seconds, he was booked in WCW. And he said, I'm 6'9" or whatever he was, 6'10", and he says, can you make TV next Monday? This was Wednesday. And they booked him the next Monday, which I thought was pretty unselfish for me because I was booking him in Memphis, which meant that all of a sudden I just let a guy go. And because business wasn't that very good anyway, that's when all the territories were dying anyway. But I says, Mark, I knew he wouldn't be he came from Dallas and came to Memphis, and then he went back to Dallas and come back to Memphis because he had met a girl there and he wanted to be around her. So we brought him back, and then he went to Atlanta. And I always told him, should he try to go to, he asked me, he says, should I try to go to WWF or WCW? And I told him, I says, go to WCW first. Let Vince get a look at you without you being right there. And let him see you first. And then, because Vince gets a hankering for what he doesn't have. And he might want Mark, and he did, I swear to God. I just said that to have something to say, I think. But it turned out to be the gospel because Vince saw him, and Vince loved big guys. He just always has loved huge guys, even if they couldn't work. He just thought them getting in the ring at 400 pounds, even though they couldn't move, he says, that kind of sold his product, he thought. But when he saw Mark, and Mark is an athlete, and when he saw him, and he brought him up there and made him the Undertaker, which I have heard is Vince's version of himself, that he'll never die. He has everlasting life, and he can have all these powers, and you just can't kill him. And that's what he brought him up there and put a manager with him, or then he ends up putting the Paul Bearer with him, who I also had in Florida, who was an actual mortician. So it just all, for the Undertaker gimmick, it just all fell in place. Then they had that big pay-per-view, and I think Mark went out there and killed a bunch of people.
He killed Coco Beware, I know that, crikey. Dropped him right in his head.
Killed them, and I think he didn't he have $1 Million Man as his manager first?
No, it was Bruce Pritchard, Brother Love.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
In the mid-90s, when you were there, did you notice that Undertaker and Vince had a especially close relationship even that far back?
Well, I knew I would just go, and Mark didn't say a lot about it. I knew Vince liked him. I mean, you can't create that. I mean, even if Mark had tried to really be his friend, it wouldn't have gone because this is all Vince. Vince likes Mark. And not too long ago, I think when he went to Saudi Arabia, he had Mark went with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Vince had a cane. He's walking with a cane. And they were going into the pay-per-view fight or whatever they were going into, the MMA fight. So I think Endeavor was there at the same time because Mark knew all this was going on before the rest of us did. So, but Mark is his friend. And how much they talk privately, I have no idea. But I do know that Vince created Undertaker. He's his friend. He can confide in Mark, knowing it won't get leaked anywhere. Well, so I think he trusts Mark.
You actually preempted. I had another couple of fan questions. David Harasny wrote in and said, "How much do you think the Undertaker Mark Calaway knew?" And you don't know, of course. Dylan in Vancouver, Canada, has also said, "Hey, Dutch, how do you think Mark Calaway, aka The Undertaker's relationship with Vince changes now? I know you used to think of Vince as a father figure. I doubt he does now. So how's this going to affect Vince and Undertaker's relationship, do you think?"
I don't think it affects them one bit.
Really?
I don't. I don't think Mark is so... I mean, he may privately think of Vince is a little bit different. But I don't think... It's like, if your father did this, would you still love your father, though? I mean, you're going to look at him differently. But I don't think... I think Mark is a pretty straight up guy. And I think he pledged his allegiance to Vince and he's got Vince to thank for everything. And I think he separates his friendship with Vince from what Vince did later on. Not because Vince has always done this. And Mark knew it then, but it was a different mindset back in those days. But this is hard to even be accused of doing what Vince has done. But I think Mark just won't say anything about it. We heard Kevin Nash try to explain his feelings about Vince, and it looked like they were like forgiving him, or I don't even know what Kevin Nash said. And then somebody else was talking about it. Do they perceive Vince differently now? I think you have to, your perception of Vince has to be changed, but you don't have to tell people. I mean, just shut up. Don't say nothing about it. I mean, what if your brother went out and killed a bunch of people and somebody said, "How do you feel about your brother now?" Well, he shouldn't have done it. You're not going to say that. You're just going to take the question and ignore it and keep going.
I mean, it's especially tough with Taken Out because he's just got a podcast out now that he's trying to bring out. So can he ignore it forever?
I mean, well, he could. Podcast. Now, here's the podcast audience. They're different beings too. And they will listen to what he's got to say. And if he came out with this, yeah, he'd have a ton of listeners, but he would have those listeners that's going to pick and parse. You like that word, parse? And parse every word. What did he mean by this? And what did he mean by that? Mark owes everything he's got right now to Vince McMahon. everything. His house, his cars, his bank account, everything. His 2021 and 0 record, which we need to talk about that one day. I was there the night it was broken.
I think we have.
You talk about, well, you talk about some disappointed people. They were like this. They just could not believe that it happened. And I don't think it should have happened anyway.
No, I think we even talked about it last week.
Well, that would be one record I don't think that should have been touched. I mean, let it go. I mean, he had it going, and so let him get hurt, even though it was against Brock Lesnar. I mean, to me, I'm talking. I would let that run anyway. But I don't think his personal belief in Vince may have changed. I'm sure it has. But his private belief, I don't think anybody ever know it. And I'd advise him about even talking about it on the pay-per-view. Really, what's he going to say?
He could say anything.
I don't know.
He could say anything and it would get a load of play, whatever he said. But we're going to move on now. Shawn Michaels has once again had fresh accusations brought up against him. So this actually comes weirdly from Brutus Beefcake, from an interview he did quite a few years ago. So during a recent NXT conference call, Michaels addressed various things, actually. He talked about Vince McMahon, I think a lot more eloquently than I think Triple H did. And then he also addressed accusations of Brutus Beefcake that he made to him about him and Marty Jannetty back in the day as the Rockers, essentially, I think the rumour was for a while, gimmicking, or essentially plopping something in the drink of girls and something that I believe at one point...
Roofies.
Yeah. Something was far more common back in the day, allegedly. So Ringside News wrote this: when asked about allegations made by Brutus Beefcake and issues raised on Dark Side of the Ring, Michael stated that he doesn't hide from his past. He refuted any allegations of non-consensual situations with women and explained that such allegations were not reflective of his issues. He emphasised that any claims suggesting non-consensual encounters were untrue, and he mentioned seeking counselling and the importance of separating fact from fiction in creating certain stories circulating in the wrestling industry. And also, this should be mentioned as well, that Beefcake has apparently walked back some of those accusations in the interim period since he first made them. Now, I know that you've told a story on here before about Marty doing that to people just because they were annoying on a plane, I think, or like they were like some students or people bugging him and stuff like that.
I'm the guy too. So, and I'm not laughing at this, but I looked in the back when we landed, and I think we were going to Dallas. I think we could have been going anywhere. But they came up. I was in the middle of the plane, and they came up, and I was talking to Marty. I said, "Are they going?" He said, "Nah, they're resting." And he had that sneaky little grin of his, and I went, "What? You didn't? You know?" He didn't say, "Yeah." No, he went, But I look back there, and they're like, they're passed out. So. And I'm assuming if he did something, it was, I don't know.
How common was this back in the day?
I heard about it a lot. Not with me, because that's all I need is a sexual charge against me. Hell, I didn't do that stuff. And I didn't hang around with guys who did that stuff. Because if I was in the room, let's say a bunch of guys got together, they're drinking beers, and a girl or two come in, and all of a sudden, this girl is passed out, and a guy's trying to do something to her, I'd leave. I said, "Nah, nope. I would separate myself from a problem that is developing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, it never happened, but I would not allow it to happen because I would know a guy's background, hear stories about him. And if it had happened in the room or within what I saw that was going to continue maybe to happen, I'd leave. So if it did break bad and they would come and interview me, I said, I'd be like the Mexican. I see nothing. I see nothing. They can't get me on it. I was gone. So you can't testify on something if you didn't see it. But yeah, it was around. I knew guys that did it or talked about it. I don't know if they did it, but they talked about it. So, and which was another mental clue to me: stay away from this guy. They're trouble. If you're in the room and a guy say he assaults, that's what's determined to be assault, then you're held responsible too. If you saw it happening and didn't do anything, so I couldn't perceive me being in any kind of a hearing like that.
Now, Bret Hart. This is something else that I wanted to mention, and for whatever reason, I didn't even put it in the script last week. Bret Hart has comments on Vince McMahon, so he's maybe the most high-profile person to come out and just say it how it is, basically. From Slate magazine, or website, Janelle Grant's lawsuit, Bret Hart has lost any respect that he once had for Vince McMahon. Quote, I don't have any problem with everybody kicking his head around the parking lot, Hart said. I'm okay with the truth coming out. I always had a respect for him being Vince. Now it's tainted. I'm embarrassed that I thought so highly of him. In response to an allegation in the lawsuit where McMahon allegedly defecated on Grant's head and back while she was raped by another man, Hart said, when you get that vision in your head, you go, that's messed up. Hart said, it's too sick and disgusting to really imagine. Bret followed up, I don't think this is the only incidence of this kind of predatory behaviour. I think you'll find that it's everywhere in WWE. It's like Jeffrey Dahmer or Harvey Weinstein or Jeffrey Epstein. Vince will be a joke. He'll be used for humour, and you'll shake your head at the shock value of some joke about what did Vince McMahon do. He'll always be associated with this story, especially as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. He also added, I apologise from the bottom of my heart to Rita Marie Chatterton, the lady referee, when he saw her a few months ago. And I said, I believe...
That's 30 years ago.
30 years ago, in fact, yes. We'll be talking about Rita in a short while as well. But he said to Rita, I believe that what happened to you, and I apologise, I was wrong. Then Bret followed up in a text message to Slate, I think despite all of the issues I ever had with Vince, I know deep down I always respected him. But now, knowing what kind of a weirdo he became, I have absolutely zero respect for him. I do not think I could ever shake his hand if he extended it too creepy.
Mm. Well, I kind of found him creepy before all this came out.
Well, before you found out he shit on women's heads, yeah.
No, that's not funny. I'm not laughing at that.
I know, but it's just such a weird... But you just got to say it. It's just the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
I've never heard of that. Now, which got me to thinking, wait a minute, it was in a threesome, right?
Yeah.
And he dumped on this woman's head.
Yeah.
And left the room. What did the guy that was left in there, what did he do?
Apparently he just carried on, and apparently he really liked it. This is why I said, how do you find out? Like, how do you want to arrange a threesome and then find out that the other guy likes that kind of thing as well? When does that conversation get broached?
When does that... Yes. I wonder, was that Laurinaitis? Could have been.
There was a physiotherapist, apparently. Vince and a physiotherapist.
Okay, when are their names going to be brought into this?
Oh, soon, I hope.
The physical thing, I know him. I know the guy. Maybe I didn't know him unless he changed, but he always, this is Vince's routine. When he would say Monday Night Raw is in Memphis, let's say, just because I'm familiar with the towns. And they used to do SmackDown the night after, and Vince could go to both shows. Now he can still go to both shows, but he's got a well, not now, but before he could go back and forth between them, but it was a lot of travel. Back in the day when I was there, they would do Memphis on Monday and a close town on Tuesday. Let's say Little Rock. Tuesday would be SmackDown in Little Rock. So Vince would go over there with his trainer or his therapist, and they would go to the hotel and they would check in. I don't know. Sometimes they check in at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and go from there straight to the gym. Him and the therapist. And Vince would go in and get his workout in. And then Vince would come back, I guess, have breakfast and start going over the show by himself. And about 11 o'clock, he'd call the writers up and they'd go over the show. And they'd be at the building at 2 o'clock. I don't know when Vince slept. Nobody else does either. He was almost like a vampire. He may have slept and he may have not slept. So I don't know. But what was your question?
Well,
do I think differently of him?
No, this is Bret Hart coming out and saying, and just being really matter of fact with what he's saying, because we've heard a lot of, fairly big name wrestling stars who've been very much on the fence or not wanting to say too much, but I think there's a few like you, and a couple of others who work under Vince has basically just said, no, this is bonkers, and sort of laid full opinions out there.
It is crazy. But I always felt that even when I was close to him and talking to him in his office, and which didn't happen a lot. But when I was sitting there and, he was, I just felt a weird feeling. I didn't know what it was. I just know that I felt really, really uncomfortable. Now I can see that my alert system, my antenna, was telling me, hey, this guy's a little bit of a different cat. He's a little bit different. So
it's like the Billy Jack Haynes radar kind of thing going on.
Well, yeah, you run into people in this business like that. And I've always heard that guys who are leaders, they're different. I don't know how different, but they're different from the standard mix of guys you would expect. And Vince is. When you read this stuff, it's not like the first time he's been charged with this. So you got to think back, well, wait a minute, he was charged with this. Rita Chatterton, she got it.
Yeah.
And it just goes on and on and on. But he's never been held accountable. He may have made settlements, which was accountable enough, but they hushed that up. So, and he paid out $19 million. You don't pay out $19 million if there's no fire there. If there's just smoke, you don't pay out $19 million. But if there's some fire there, yeah, you're writing those checks. Shut up and sign the NDA. Now, have they said that the NDAs were illegal?
No, we don't know that yet. This is what the civil suit is going to determine, I think, if it ever gets that far. We're going to get to Rita in a minute, just to sort of close up on the Bret thing.
They were illegal. I'm going to make a legal point here. They were illegal if the board was not told.
No, I don't think that's a point of contention. I don't know. I think
you obviously went to a different law school than I did. I went to the University of Dutch Law School, a very fine law school there.
I'd have to get the civil suit back up and look at it. But the main point of contention was that the NDA was too broad and they didn't pay it anyway. And it was on maybe because it was on WWE property and WWE paid them, and Vince, I don't know. Who knows? We'll hopefully find all that out. Just very quickly with Bret. I mean, just basically a comment on Bret's comments on Vince, because that's really sort of nailing your colours to the mast, as it were.
Now, what are you asking? What
just you?
What Vince said?
No, Bret Hart's comments
What
on
he
Vince.
said to Rita?
No, what he said to Vince about Vince.
Oh, I kind of agree with him. I kind of agree. If Vince walked in the room, I look at him differently.
You check if he washed
I
his
might
hands
say,
first, wouldn't you? Nowadays,
no,
more
I'd
than ever.
say, don't touch me. I'm put my gloves on because I don't know where you've been. You could have come straight from a session. I don't know, with your therapist. I don't know. But what is there to say? I mean, without just coming out and says, okay, Vince, did you do that or not? You could say that. And what's he going to say? He can't admit it. I wonder if this does go to trial, if they get him on the stand, if he is asked that question, and that would be everywhere. I mean, it would be the BBC, the Canadian News, the Mexico City Gazette, the Times,
The
the
Daily
Post.
Bugle.
No kidding. It would be everywhere if they said, did you actually defecate on a woman's head? My God. Talk about views. Hey, if we had it here and we was the only place that had it, we'd hit 100 million views.
God, yeah. If we were the only people who have cameras in the court.
Yes.
Yeah, right. You need to work. You need to work on getting the rights to that right now. I think.
I will.
The early bird, Dutch. The early bird. I said we were going to talk about Rita Chatterton very briefly. The people. Well, there's still a lot of people denying. That Vince could have possibly done any of this, and there are also people
who's denying.
Oh God, we get loads of people. I think we get loads of comments saying, "No, it doesn't sound like Vince. The text messages aren't him. Everyone's faked it. People are after him. That kind of thing." I mean, some of it could have been made up. Who knows? I mean, it's a civil suit. You put in the absolute worst. You make things sound as bad as humanly possible. We don't know. No one knows the truth apart from two people. But a lot of people who've also said that they don't believe any of these indictments, including famous wrestlers, have said that they will never, ever read the 67-page indictment in the first place. That sort of cancels out their opinion. But this brings us to Rita Marie Chatterton, WWF's first female referee who originally came out with her own allegations in the early 90s, but this happened in like 86. Allegations that were, for the most part, summarily dismissed as coming from a bitter ex-WWF employee. Now, I asked my old podcast pal Don Morocco for his take, because I'm not sure I ever asked him at the time. And he said that when he was in the WWF, he said he'd heard about the Rita Marie situation. Essentially, Vince McMahon, she alleges, assaulted her in the back of a limo after promising her the world, essentially. Well, we're going to market you, you're going to be a huge star, first female referee, and, you're going to be a big part of the WWF, and then assaults her. And then... and then Don continues to say he heard about the situation at the time, but it never became a big deal in the WWF locker room, and he also believes that she kept reffing in the New York area for a time afterwards before being let go. Was this incident between Rita Marie and Vince McMahon well known in the territories at the time? Did you hear about this before Rita came onto Geraldo in 92?
No. We never heard about it. We just heard about how good their business was. We heard that, and how well guys could do up there. So, of course, we all wanted to go to New York. Guys want to go to New York till they get there. Then they find out it's just Memphis on a bigger scale, and, they'd be on these huge houses, and the payoffs wouldn't be what they think they would be. See, they pay who they want to pay. See, wrestling territories had a theme, how they paid off talent, and so you had a $100,000 house. Well, $30,000 of it was a third of it was supposed to go to talent, and then a third of it was supposed to go to pay expenses like the building and security and the ring removal, and then 33% was what the promotion made. But see, that could be very misleading too, because if you had 30 guys on that card, let's say, and you only had 33,000 to pay them, well, you got to pay your main event. You got to pay Bruno. You got to pay Ivan Koloff or whoever, or Stan Hansen or whoever your main event. You just can't pay them $1,000. They go, what? Because if you paid everybody equally on the card, it'd be $1,000 and something, all the way down to the first match. But the money would leave the earlier matches and move to the top of the card. See what I mean? So your main event would get $3,000 or $4,000, and by the time you say it was a tag match on top, say $4,000 went to each guy. That took 12,000 of your 30,000. Now you got 18 to pay 26 guys. And so you could actually go down to the first match making $400. And that's why they would say, well, it didn't pay that well. Well, he didn't pay the underneath well, because that's telling you, well, we could have run this card with anybody in your spot, and we were still drawing the same money, which is right. So, but that was the way the business was. That's the way they paid. So I have made more money on some Memphis cards with about a third, 2/3 less money amount, and made more money in Memphis than what I could have made probably in WWE. It's every territory is different. And if you don't like what you get, you need to broach it to the owner or the booker and ask him why, because he won't say why. He probably didn't make the payoff. But I've had them tell me, I said, I didn't like what I got last week. Okay, we'll make it up to you this week. We'll make it up. They made it up, but they didn't make it up. Guess who made it up? The other talent. They would just take from them and give it to me. And I'm sure it's happened to other guys, and they would take from me and give it to him to keep him happy. It's really a business there's no comparing it to any other business.
Is it robbing Peter to pay Paul? Is that the same?
Absolutely. So it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. So you don't know unless you had a guarantee, and you could have a guarantee not on paper and that they would honor. But if they didn't honor it, what you going to do? You have nothing to say that they agreed to pay you X number of dollars for a week or whatever it was. So, but that's what they would have. So, see, for a long time, legal representation was kind of frowned on. If you go to them with a legal letter that they think they have to pay you and you can prove it, you wouldn't be hired. So, this getting lawyers involved, that came on board about, 20, 25 years ago. And not everybody, just the main guys. That's why the unions would never go back in the 80s and 90s. Because the unions would only, your top guys would boycott. They wouldn't sign it. So unless you had them, pushing for this, you didn't get it. And I doubt even if you'd had them pushing it, I don't think you would have gotten it anyway, because promoters would push back against it. Now you're telling the promoter what to do, and he wouldn't like that. He's spending the money to promote the show, rent the building, do this, pay the talent, pay the TVs, pay the production. Then all of a sudden, talent comes up and tells him what he could pay, and it was a different model too. You just couldn't do it. I don't even think you could actually do it today, to tell you the truth. But I think WWE is beyond that point. I think everybody's got a pretty decent deal.
On the main roster, yeah. I think in NXT, they still pay a lot of them quite low, unless they were already on the main roster and then they've come back.
But they accept that when they go there.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you act, say you want to be a big star in Hollywood, well, you're going to go off Broadway, or you going to go make some little cheapy movie somewhere just to get noticed. And that's not going to be forever. You're hoping that you can get noticed enough to get to the main roster. So you got to set achievement levels that are within reach. And in NXT, they say, well, I just got to get there. And they have a hope and they have a dream. And when they get there, now they'll be making more money. But is this what they want, or they want to be a big star? So sometimes you got to have somebody tell you, well, I think this is as high as you can go. But you can't even say that either. Because LA Knight, look at where he was a year ago. He was at NXT, right? Was he there or no?
No, he was getting beaten up by Bray Wyatt in that glow in the dark match.
Okay, well,
and then from there he started doing quite well. There's more stuff with Vince McMahon and stuff that we can deal with, but I'm actually going to save that till next week because there's just so much more news really that we're going to get to. We're going to finish on AEW, but before we do get there, Steve Austin recently gave an interview, and I've not written where the interview was given.
You say anything about me?
Did you message him? Did you speak to Steve recently?
No, not recently. I'm gonna talk to him, see what he's doing.
Yeah, we need the scoop.
Hey, he was on a Super Bowl commercial.
Was he really? What was he doing?
With a mullet. Oh. You had to look at him twice to tell that it's him.
This Super Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know that was apparently the most watched program in United States history since the moon landing?
Possibly.
So it's like 125 million or something.
And
like
now
that.
the people are saying that football is fixed. You believe that?
No.
We can't get two guys to get in a ring and work with each other. Now you're talking about 22? You can't do that.
You still get people still saying, oh, UFC's fixed, it's all fake. And it's like, no, it isn't. Anyone with a functioning brain can see that it isn't. Apart from a couple which were, in fairness, but they really look fixed. Like a couple in the early days were in the tournament.
Listen,
I believe,
this is what an old time wrestler told me years ago. Both guys don't have to know. Only one has to know, and who is that?
No, the guy going down.
Right. He's the only one that's got to know. You don't got to tell everybody. And that's true. You just tell you tell the winner that it's fixed. Wait a minute, the other guy's got to do it.
But there's a difference between fixing matches, which happens from everything to cricket to snooker. You know, it has.
What is snooker? What is snooker?
Jimmy Snooker. No kidding. You know, it's
That's what I thought you were talking about.
No, anyway, it's not pool, but it's billiards. It's with 15 red balls and all that kind of thing. Anyway, the match fixing that as well. Tennis. You know, there's match fixing scandals in every single thing. But to say, like, some people turn around and say, oh, UFC, it's all fake. And it's like, no, it isn't. There has been a few instances where at least one person knew and took a dive or whatever. That has happened. And
it's happened a lot.
Yeah.
You know when it happened?
Crikey.
You know when it started, right?
Which one?
Fixing matches, fixing outcomes.
It's got to be before wrestling. I'd say boxing.
Yeah, but what era of humanity did it start?
You're probably gonna. Oh, we've already talked about this. It's
well, we're gonna talk about it again.
The Christians and the Lions, or in Roman times,
back in the Roman days, because people bet on it, and when there's money, there's betting. Always, that's a human trait, and people will always do it.
Steve Austin.
But if I was, but if you were a gladiator and there's a lion in there, and all of a sudden, my money's on the line.
Well, you know, someone might pay the lion to take a dive.
Then you beat the lions, yeah. You know, horses, you know how they rig horse races? I heard this. I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes sense. They don't, they drug test the winner. You know who they don't drug test?
The losers.
The loser.
Yeah, so you could I have heard that,
So,
yeah, you just dope them up a bit before they start.
Yeah, you dope them up. But one that thinks he might win, you dope him, slow him down a step or two, and they don't test them. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, and then when it comes to a big race, they get in 10-1, put the money on it.
Absolutely.
Oh, horse racing. Yeah, as I say, there's lots of rigging in sports, but
don't you say nothing about horse racing. That's one of my favorite sports.
Is it really?
I watch, just the Kentucky Derby. I watch it every year. Kentucky Derby is something I've watched religiously. It's like the Super Bowl. I watched every Super Bowl they've ever had. And I watch, when I started finding out about the Kentucky Derby, I would watch it every year.
You wear like a suit, a colonel suit for the occasion.
Yeah. Hey, Derby week in Louisville is a big, big deal. A huge deal. People walk around, they got all these big parties and they're wearing the hats, and it's really a party week for Louisville. So I've never been there doing Derby week. Wrestled there, but I never was around where the partying was going on. All right, continue.
Steve Austin is saying the following to somebody. I didn't actually say where he was doing it. He was asked about having one more match, and he said, I said I'd never get in the ring again unless all the stars aligned, Austin said, and for some reason, somehow, they all did. And at the age of 57, I headlined the first night of WrestleMania a couple of years ago, and he did really well as well. I never thought I'd do that. If you'd have told me that when I retired in 2003, I'd have said you're crazy. So I'm not going to sit here and say no to anything, because you never say never in this crazy business of sports entertainment. So I think the interviewer, because I've only got the quotes here from Austin, has said, what about CM Punk? And Austin says, it would be a good one. I like Punk, and I think Punk likes me. So as long as he can take a Stone Cold Stunner, Austin said with a laugh, I consider him a great friend.
Yeah.
A great guy and a great wrestler who's had a great career. We'll see. And then he follows up with, I love the sports entertainment business more than anything I've ever done in my life. And you get a dose of it and you want more. We were talking about that last Tuesday, in fact, with No One Ever Retires from Wrestling. And so here I am talking to you a couple of years later about doing it again, and that's how addicting it is to me just to talk about it. And I get excited, and I'll start talking too fast, exactly. So Austin is not ruling out another match, and CM Punk might be the guy.
Okay, Steve Austin is not a stupid guy. He sees a new owner coming on the block. The Rock already saw it. Now he's going to make him a ton of money off of him. And now Austin sees that these Endeavor people dropped in off the clouds. Well, he needs his payoff. And now you'll see Hogan. Hogan will drop in sometime. Hell, yeah. He may be 72 when he goes out there and he's doing this. And now people will respond to him if he's just doing that. But I think Austin, I don't blame him if they're willing to. And you're not paying to see a match for Steve Austin. I mean, the people that want to take it or go to it, you're seeing Steve Austin. That's what you're seeing. And I don't think nobody gets ripped off. I think Austin would try to give us a better match than Ric Flair did. I mean, that was just embarrassing. But I think Brock would do a little more than that, or they would at least work it. So it looks like that he might be getting hurt or a little bit. I mean, the thing with Flair is just awful, terrible. So, but when you have the new guy come on the block like Endeavor or TKO or whatever their names are, they were fans before they were investors. And they want to get in on this WrestleMania week. They want to live it because they got the money to pay for it. And they're going to make money. So them going to WrestleMania week, I think, would be a big, big deal for all those guys.
Do you think Steve Austin is like, because you mentioned before with Endeavor getting in, there's billions flying around here, there, and everywhere, record profits. Do you think he's rubbing his hands together and thinking, man, this, if he's I'm sure he's already set for life already, but man, he's just thinking this could buy me a few more farms in Nevada or wherever he lives now.
Well, I'm sure it could, but see, when you get on the scale of WrestleMania and you're in a high match, your sellability goes sky high. Everybody sees you. And if you watch the Super Bowl, they were Stone Cold was in that. I forgot some other wrestlers were in it. So, and they're not in a Super Bowl commercial because nobody knows them. People know them. I mean, the wrestling business is, I mean, people know wrestlers, even if they don't follow it. They know it because when they change into channels or flicking the remote, you're going to run across wrestling sometime. And WWE does it in such a way, it's a slick production. And when a guy's going to the ring and the lights and the music's playing, and that's a production. And you're seeing it right in the confines of your own living room, and it looks like a really high scale production, and it is. See, if you look between the difference of the production of the shows between WWE and AEW, that's as far as you got to look.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, because there's a world of difference.
So CM Punk's been advanced as an opponent. Who do you think would be the best opponent for Steve Austin? One, to give him a good match, and two, to keep him safe. And three, for fan interest, of course.
But he wants CM Punk.
I think CM Punk's a good shout.
Yeah, everybody I think that you would put in with Steve Austin, who they would choose, would be as solid, and Austin's not going to get hurt at all. So I couldn't pick one right now, but I would say those two guys, Austin Theory and what's the other kid from Australia's name?
Oh, Grayson Waller.
Yeah. They would be great. A handicap match. And he could talk and they could say, I mean, they could almost talk it in such a way that where do you want to see Austin just kill him? Because those guys are really great. They're great heels. They really are. And if you like them, you like them. But if you don't, most people wouldn't like them because of their mouth. But back in the days, you would literally pay for heels like that because they get a reaction. They can do all your stuff. You can do all their stuff. And there's a story you can tell with those guys because they're animated. They're good. They can fly all over the ring, and you can turn them on each other and then turn them back. And I mean, it's unlimited with those guys, I would think.
Right, so we're going to move on. We've got a few more bits of news, a few short ones, then we're going to talk about AEW and a Darby Allin promo. But we've got the Booker T firing incident, but it's 2 pages. Should we just skip it? I mean, did you read it?
I read it. I read everything you send.
I know that, but I can barely understand it, and I wrote it.
No, I understand because it was unrelated to wrestling, unrelated to to business within the company. It was a private issue, and they were all hanging around his school, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to try and do the really short version, but there's 2 pages here. Essentially, there was a young woman called Rachel Rose who was signed to Booker T's reality wrestling promotion. It's almost like a feeder system to WWE as well as its own little independent promotion who does like local TV and stuff. And she was alleging that she was getting stalked and getting threatening behavior from a wrestler called Sean Reed. Now, he was told to stay away, or was asked to stay away, and he wouldn't stay away. And then she tried to get an injunction out on him, what do you call it? Barring contact kind of thing.
Yeah. When I grew up, it was called a peace warrant, which is a It was a piece of paper, legal paper that says don't come within 300 feet of this person.
Yeah, I actually like that better. Peace warrant, we'll call it a peace warrant. Anyway, she tried to file one. They said she couldn't because she was never in a relationship with him. So apparently that was a thing.
I don't understand that.
I don't understand that. It's bizarre.
No, because somebody could just pick you out to harass you. You don't have to know them. I don't know. I don't get that either.
I don't get that either. Anyway, I think the bone of contention is that there was a bar around the corner from the facility where they train, and this Sean Reed fella was known to be at the bar, but there's a tradition with all the talent from reality of wrestling that they go to the bar after they're done for the day. And Rachel Rose was told not to go because this guy was already there. She went anyway because, it was a tradition. She didn't want to be stopped from going certain places, I guess. And then there was an incident in the bar where, let me just have a look. Spotted by late night, confronted Rose, who informed Reed that she would be calling the police. ROW talent also confronted Reed with Rose telling Fightful that Reed assaulted a ROW wrestler before attempting to attack her. Reed was arrested. But then this guy, Sean Reed, wasn't anything to do with reality wrestling at any point recently. He'd been let go, essentially. But the problem is that Booker T, quote-unquote, fired Rose, as Rachel Rose as well. And then Booker T responded to these claims, saying, and I'm sorry, this is going to be a lot of reading, I knew Sean Reed was at the bar the next door off reality wrestling property. He asked Rose not to go, and then she goes, and then because it's off ROW property, it's not his problem, essentially. I stressed to Rose, go somewhere else, do that for me so we can defuse the situation. It's a police situation, not anything that can be handled off property. So essentially, I don't know if Booker T is almost like saying, well, she did instigate the scene. She was told not to go somewhere, and she started something with somebody who was already starting something with her, so it's very confusing. And the other thing is that Booker wanted to stress that he didn't fire her because she was never an employee. She was an independent contractor, as is usual wrestling, and that he wasn't fully aware of all the facts by the time he decided not to use her reality wrestling. That's the meat of it.
I fully agree with Booker. And she is not an employee of this. She's a self-employed employee. She's a contractor, is what she is.
Independent, yeah.
Yeah. And if it's affecting Booker's business, yes. He won't fire her, he just won't use her. I don't know who told her she was fired. But so you got to watch using the word fired, because that meant you were hired. You got to, and that's a legal issue. But if it was giving any kind of a problem to his school, yeah, he was perfectly in the right. He got rid of the guy, right?
Long before, I believe, yeah.
And he got rid of that. And even though she wasn't in a relationship, he could have wanted to be in a relationship and kept harassing her and hanging around. But it had an effect on his school. Yeah, I think he's totally in the right. And I agree with what he did. It is a police issue. It's not his issue.
To sort of back up Booker T there, by the time he made this decision, he said that he wasn't, didn't know all the facts, essentially, but also did say, whatever you do, don't make it worse by going to this bar. And then she went to the bar, and then it became an even bigger deal than it was before, even though, ultimately, according to Rose's testimony, that, she was the one being wronged by being stalked or being harassed by this guy. It's confusing, this.
I agree with him. Yeah. I really do.
Okay, we're going to move on to one more thing. I'll leave this middling bit of news out for next week, but we're going to talk about Marty Jannetty. He's been told... Do you remember when we saw that photo of him?
Yeah.
Of his... how could you forget?
Yeah.
And so he's been having ankle infections for years. He's not been looking after his leg, apparently, not doing up all the laces on his boots. He's had poor ankle support. His ankle's been just in a mess for years. And don't search the photo if you've got an uneasy stomach, I'll tell you. And now the doctors have said that he needs to have his leg amputated.
Mm. I read that and I went, well, and I thought of exactly what you said. We saw the picture, didn't look good then. This is what, 3 months ago that we saw it,
Yeah, something like that.
and it didn't look good then. And I hate that they're even talking about amputating um, the leg. Is that what they're saying? Or is
Yeah, I imagine
mid
below the
leg?
knee, like I imagine below the knee, like a Kerry Von Erich kind of job.
Yep. Well, I hate that. So, but that's I don't know what to say.
No, well,
I mean,
he's been getting recurring
is this
infections for years. I mean, I think I
well?
even
If it
said this in
gets
the last video that maybe you might want to consider it if it just won't get better.
yeah, no, no, if it's not going to get better, he don't have to consider it. They're going to do it to save his life.
Yeah, it could kill him if he could travel
it,
the
it could
infection.
get if he gets an infection and it goes up to his heart, he's dead. So he can think about that. Plus, he'll feel horrible till it gets there. But if they see that, another guy that had to have his legs amputated was Kamala.
Yeah,
Had to have not one leg, but both legs amputated before he died.
is that diabetes
So
in his case?
I think so. He probably didn't take care of it, and it got ahead of him. So anyway, I feel sorry for him, Marty. If you just meet Marty on the street, great guy, funny, not aggressive. He's laughing with you like he's known you all his life, which is trademark Marty. That's what. Even if you're a fan, hey Marty, I said, oh yeah, man, and he's slapping you on the back, and he loves guys like that in the bar. They'll buy him a beer, or they'll do this, do that, and but he just he's a little bit of a weird duck on his own. But I do hate to hear about it was his left leg, as I remember. Yes or no?
Oh, I cannot remember. I seem to remember thinking it was his right, but it doesn't matter, left or right.
Doesn't
Apparently, it's
matter.
got to go.
Yep.
Right, so yeah, best wishes to Marty. Now we're going to do the one bit of news that we've got remaining, and I wanted to really touch on this. You watched both videos. You watched the setup of the angle on the previous Dynamite, and you watched Darby Allin then address the Young Bucks. So very quickly, in fact, why don't you tell us what happened the week before with Sting and Darby and the Young Bucks? What did you see?
Well, I just watched his interview.
Oh, you didn't see what happened the week before?
The Young Bucks beat up Sting's two sons.
As well as Sting and Darby, yeah.
Yeah, and they got blood on their outfits.
Mm-hmm.
And they wore those outfits to the ring. And here comes Darby by himself to answer the two brothers without Sting. And he got a ring and he had a stick, I guess, for protection. And he cuts this interview. And he didn't even bring up beating up his kids, doing this or doing that, and he even brought up Cody Rhodes' name. Why? I think they would want the people to forget Cody, because that would be involving him in the angle, which he is with another company. We know that's not going to happen. I didn't understand it, and it ended flat as hell. It just they left. So what I would do to make it end up good or better, I would have Darby says, hey, everybody in that dressing room has never liked me at all. And I don't expect no help out here. And they said, yeah, you ain't going to get no help either. And then have a bunch of guys just come at the top of the stage. It's like, well, yeah, he's got a point, but we're not going to. And somehow run them in. Now they're forced to go. He can say, come on in, or something like that. I would end it a different way. I think it was what he gave wasn't a bad interview, really, if you didn't listen to what he was saying.
No, he was eloquent.
And
he was eloquent in what he said.
It was a good interview, and maybe that'll sell it. I don't know.
He barely mentioned. I mean, it's now official that that we've known for weeks. Darby and Sting's final match is going to be facing the Young Bucks for the AEW tag team titles. But, oh man, I mean, I was watching it. I actually was listening to Wrestling Observer Radio, and I was even laughing because Dave Meltzer was obliterating it and just saying the most counterproductive in the promo I've ever heard. Because you've got the Young Bucks.
Was that at the end of the show?
No, I don't think it was at the end of the show. I think it might have been in the middle of the show. And keep in mind, that's the main event for the pay-per-view.
Well, I'm glad it was at the middle of the show, because if that wanted to be, that'd been a bad way to end it. Unless they have another way to end the next show. How many shows before their pay-per-view?
Oh, geez. I don't think it's this Saturday, is it? I hope that wasn't the go-home show. Can you imagine if that was the go-home? Hang on. No, I think it's in a few weeks. It's in a few weeks, I think.
It's not go home, it's don't leave home. To come and see it, or don't turn your TV on, maybe. But I don't know. It's you can't make sense out of AEW, because Tony has never been at this level of booking. I don't think a lot of bookers have been at this level of booking, really. And you can tell that he's kind of lost. He didn't know what to do. And I don't know who's advising him, because they've never let that out. I mean, Tony strictly has control over 100% of the book. That's what I'm getting by watching it. Nobody it's even leaked that anybody's helping him. I'm sure somebody is helping him, but I don't know. And see, everybody thinks they can book. Well, everybody can. Everybody can. It doesn't take a damn master's degree to book. But you need to know a few things. But you need to be around somebody who has booked and who has you need an education in that. It's like storytelling. WWE, if you watch them, it takes a while. And I think that is, from my vantage point, a lack of patience. You know, when they say, we got to get this house up, we got to get it up. Well, they do a deal where they call hot shot, which is, I think, what they try to do here. I don't think you needed an angle going into the Sting thing. It's his last match, and let the book say, we want to be known as the ones who took Sting out.
So you wouldn't have done any kind of sneak attack. You would have just interviews back and forth, and that was it.
Well, I don't know what I'd do, because I'm not there. I don't know. You got to feel the room. You got to feel the vibe.
Well, would you go there and try and get a Cody Rhodes chant started?
No, I wouldn't have done that. So, but what he's saying is, you didn't hire me. You hired this other guy who was a failure. And then Cody said this, and so, whatever. I don't think that's not beneficial to your cause at all.
Do you know what, as well? The other thing is, and because we've been, as I say, recording this on a Friday, not a Thursday like usual, I always do the thumbnails, the little pictures for the clips on a Friday morning. So I've actually preempted what we were talking about and made them. And then when I was doing the screen grabs for Dynamite to make into a picture, and I know we've talked about this before, but man, their production is so dark. I have to lighten up those photos and sharpen them up so much. It's like you can barely see the Young Bucks. You can not really make out Darby Allin from the ring, and it's shot weird because it's like the camera's like right up his nose the entire time he's cutting the interview. It's weird.
It looks like you shot it on a Sony hand cam.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
It looks 10 years old technology they're filming it on, or pre-HD sometimes. And
people, they go to WWE, they go to Raw, or they go to SmackDown, and you see great camera work. I have noticed about SmackDown and Raw, they don't do the jerky camera movements anymore since Steve Dunn.
Kevin.
What's his name? Kevin Dunn's gone, which always irked the hell out of me. So, but you don't see that. And I think AEW, they need a lot of work in that truck. They need a lot of work. And I don't know who's directing the shots. That's the truck doing it, really, but I don't know who's there. But it's not that so much. You can put up with some odd shots every now and then. It's the lighting. And if you don't have the lighting, it just looks It looks like you're sitting in a warehouse somewhere with some people around a ring and a light over it.
Do you know what it is? Have you ever seen Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark? The first one?
I was just watching it when we started this.
You kidding?
No, I wasn't. No.
You son of a gun.
That's twice I've got you today.
I'm editing those out. No, leave me. At the very last shot, right, they get the Ark and in a box, and the federal government put it in a warehouse in amongst thousands of other boxes. And that's how Dynamite is shot. It just seems to be just some lights in the centre, darkness all around to nowadays hide that there's not that many fans there. But also, Tony has said that they're going to be doing a new stage design soon. So hopefully that will address...
I hope so.
Yeah, hopefully that will address some of the problems, because it's so black at the moment.
And that is, let me tell you, that is expensive.
Yeah.
To do that. Very expensive. So, but at least he's thinking about it. At least he has come to the conclusion that it's more than just wrestling. If you're going to do a show, you got to do a show. So, and I'm watching. So if you're going to show wrestling to somebody who's not a fan, when you show them this, it's almost like Broadway in a sense. You parade your performers down the aisle and they're all dressed and, sprinkly stuff, and the girls and the guys and the big muscles. So hits the show and they're doing the walk. And the music, even though the music is all original, I don't much like the music, but not as good as it used to be. But they got rid of their music guy. But you will never, I can't say that you'll never, but the Undertaker music became a classic. Steve Austin music became a classic, the Breaking the Glass. So when you heard that, now I forgot the guy's name. His name was Johnson.
Jim Johnson.
But he was Jim Johnson, and I met him, and he was just like a musician that he wasn't very interesting to talk to, unless you were talking about music. But he did know music, and he was very, very good, because some of his things that he came up with are known all around the world. But guess what? He doesn't get any of the money from it. WWE owns all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hear that somewhere, WWE, they get music whenever it's used. They get money whenever it's used. If it's used in a movie, WWE gets the money, and Jim Johnson gets 0%.
I think as a co-composer, you may get a percentage in it, but yeah, that's what happens when a company hires an in-house musician. They keep the trademarks, they keep the copyright on the songs themselves. Very quickly, we've already gone over on our showtime, but as far as Darby Allin and what we saw with him, is this a case for script writers? Because he delivered what he said just fine. It's just he said all the wrong things to promote a match. Is this a case for getting a scriptwriter, or at least someone to work with some of the guys for bullet points?
Well, they don't want that, remember? They think they can go out there and deliver this on their own. They can't. I don't know if any scriptwriter worked with him on this. I can't believe any one of them did. And I don't know who even wrote it, if anybody did write it, or if it was just off the top of his head. You can't tell, because it was a very amateurish interview. Even though it was good, it was pretty good. You could tell that he was excited about it, but you couldn't. I think he just said the wrong things, and I don't know. You see something, said, well, a fan will say you like it right now, the way it is, or it could have been better, or it sucked. So I'm right in the middle on that.
Just notice behind you, are those some Lindor chocolates you've got there?
What now?
Under the lamp. What are those chocolates? Under the lamp behind you.
Yes, I do.
God, you son of a gun, you didn't offer me one. I love Lindor chocolates as well.
See? And I got some here too.
No, don't. I'm going to have to go to the shops.
See?
Strawberry. You can keep them. Okay, thank you very much.
They're great. Okay.
Strawberry filling.
We need to get Lindor as a sponsor.
Yeah, even if they just sent us loads of chocolate, that'd be fat as a house. I love Lindor. Oh.
You got a pretty good eye for this stuff.
Well, do you know, it's because I've got two different screens with you on it, and I look at you on the small screen that I can see, but there's a big screen over there, and I just spotted it then on the big screen. Anyway, we've gone over our usual time, so I'm going to say thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Ask Dutch Anything will be up on Tuesday, and if you want to ask Dutch anything, you email at questionsfordutch@gmail.com. As we said at the beginning, you have plenty of stuff. You can buy official merch from the Dutchman himself directly. There's Tales from a Dirt Road, there's World According to Dutch, signed books you can get through Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com, as well as diplomas, as well as a few of those University of Dutch caps that you can get signed. Make an offer through that email. But for now, thank you very much for watching. We will catch you again on Tuesday, and Dutch, we the people.